Okay, we are live. Hi, I'm Janelle, and you're listening to The Moment It Clicked. Join me as I dive into the minds of fellow multilinguals to uncover the myth of the click. Is it real? Do others experience it too? Let's find out. Today I'm here with Justyna, who is originally from Poland. She speaks Polish, English, which she says is her first love, Russian, a little bit of Bulgarian, and she's currently learning Georgian. She teaches English to introverts and is also running a podcast, which I will leave in the description below. So, welcome, Justyna.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Without further ado, let's begin. Do you think it's possible to be the same person in 2 or more languages in your case?
Well, it's a hard question, but it's also an interesting one, because on one side, I think, yes, you will probably be a different person, but then I also think of it like kind of layers of your personality that if you didn't know that language, so in my case, like English, then probably you wouldn't bring out those personality traits that I maybe, have somewhere like deep inside of me, and I wouldn't be able to explore otherwise. Like for me, I feel like that. Like if there was no English, kind of I would be like this bland Polish person, because I'm the introvert. So I would always be called like the shy, quiet, and I feel like that in Polish. I felt like that. But then when I get into English, even when I would be going to school, have classes, I would be always like, oh, I can raise my hand. I know the answer. I'm not scared to, talk, answer in English. Whereas in other classes, I'll be quiet. No. So I think, yes, I think also taught me like bravery in a way, like, to go out there and, communicate with people, try, talk, so yeah, I feel in a way like, yeah, it can have like you have the different personality, but on the other hand, like it's not like I'm this completely different person, like the alter ego in a way, because there are parts of me that I will have in every language that I won't change because of the experiences, the past that I had, situations that built me, that made me. So I can't kind of erase it completely if I go to another language.
Yeah, I really like this concept of layers. I think you've described it kind of visually, and I can close my eyes and imagine like, yes, this is the base. And then you've got everything that you put on top of it, and you build and you build and you become this whole person. So much
Yes.
so that if you take that away, if you take one of your languages away from you, you wouldn't be completely you.
Yes. When you say visually, I'm glad because I'm the visual. And so, I have this image kind of like, the layers in the onion that you peel them and you discover like something new, right?
Yeah,
And you have that
yeah,
stem inside that kind of holds it, but then you build up onto it.
yeah.
Mhm.
You've sort of touched on it, but maybe you could talk a little bit more to how you feel. Like, do you feel like yourself in all of the languages?
Mm-hmm. So, when you introduced me and you said like, that English is my first love, I felt like, my journey, like when it started with English, that was kind of shaping me. That was helping me to, be okay. I can discover myself, and because I was really, before I started learning English at school, I would learn by myself, like books, magazines, whatever I could get my hands on, I would be learning, and I feel that was like tapping into me, and I would be developing like my personality and getting into the point where I am now. So, for me, even it's funny or maybe, interesting that I express myself in English. I think in English. So even if I, let's say, go back to Poland, like to see my family, and I speak with them, I will sound funny. They will joke at me like, oh, like, of course, one thing, because I've been in England for 13 years and I teach English. So that's one thing. But then I say, when I speak to them, like, you sound funny. And sometimes I feel like I lack the words, even if Polish is my native language. If I say something, as if I don't express myself fully. I can give you an example. When I was doing therapy in the past, I would have with the Polish therapist, but we would have it in English because I wasn't able to express, some like deep emotions. And sometimes I tried, but then I was like, can we please switch to English? Because I cannot describe like the emotion fully in Polish, but if I switch to English, I have the words to do it. And that the whole emotion expression, like I can easily, give it to you. And in Polish, I will struggle.
It's really interesting. And I think that it reminds me a little bit of situations where you experience things in a certain language, and then when you try to explain it in, for example, your first language, like in English, it's like lacking something, or those words that you say, but I don't want to say that in that way. I want to say it in this way. This would be this expression would be me truly expressing what I feel in this
Yes,
moment.
yes, exactly.
And if you and if the person doesn't understand that, like my family who doesn't speak Spanish, then you're like, oh, I have to limit myself to speak to my family. How bizarre!
Yes.
I have to fit into a box in order
Mhm.
to this English box,
Definitely.
in order to say that. And it was really highlighted last summer, Australian summer. I was visiting my family, and a friend of mine came from Argentina, and
Mhm.
it was so nice to be able to speak to her in Spanish and have that interaction, and then and be able to speak English and see my family. But then when I wanted to speak Spanish, or when I wanted to, express myself in a certain way,
Yes.
it was like, ah, thank you.
Yes, you feel
So,
like you don't have to like explain and go deep because you express something like a simple word, a sentence, and the person could get it because you have like this connection in this language, and they know what you mean with
yeah.
all the emotion, with all the layers and everything.
Yeah, exactly. This podcast sort of is investigating a little bit the idea of the click, whether there's a moment that we can sort of pinpoint or reflect on and say, that's when I felt like these different versions of myself sort of became one. So, have you felt the click? Can you relate to what I'm talking about? What has been your experience?
Oh, I definitely can relate. But as I was saying, for me, because when I try to like go back and think of that click moment, I feel like in a way it's like you have like those little tiny clicks that will stack on top of each other. So as I said, I think of like my first interactions in like English, for example, at my university when we have exchange students and everybody was scared to talk to them. And I was like, people from abroad, I can talk to them, like I can practice English. So, things like that. The first time when I came to England for the summer job before university was the same, like that idea, like, wow, I'm in a different country. I use different language and I can communicate with people and they get me, they answer back. But then when I think, when I dig deeper and I feel like that like a big click for me that, was like, okay, this is it. Was, I think it was like 13 years ago, 12 years ago, when I was talking with my Estonian friend. We were living back in London and we were talking about this that click moment. Like there is a moment when you switch your thinking from your native language into the foreign language you're learning. And that's like, aha, now I feel comfortable in a language. So we're talking about this and I was like, she's like, oh, I haven't experienced this. I was like, me neither. But then fast forward, I don't know, after this conversation, maybe a month or two, I wake up and I'm like, wow, I was dreaming in English. Like it's not something, made up story. This is actually, happening. So I was like, wow. And it's like, the click, but also for me, it was like the realization, like, okay, now I see it. This actually happens. I switched my thinking from Polish, and translating in my head all the time, like that Google Translate dictionary. This is hello in Polish is this. This is, I don't know, shop in Polish. This is this. I stopped doing it and I started thinking in English as well. I was like, wow, like how is it possible? Like you start to think like, what your brain can do. Like, how is it possible? It's something like, out of this world in a way, like a superpower. So it was very,
It's quite surreal.
yes.
I can share like quick anecdote on my
Hmm.
side. I don't think I've shared it yet, where I was living in Argentina. I had been there for maybe not too long, maybe in the first year. And I remember I had already been speaking Spanish. I had traveled through Central and South America. I was dating an Argentinian guy at the time. And so I had, I was exposed to Spanish. But there was this moment where I was speaking to one of his friend's girlfriends, and she was talking. And I had sort of this out of body experience where I saw myself speaking to this woman or listening to her and saying, I am understanding everything. I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, wow, I'm I mean, there's not even a doubt. Like, I'm not even like, I was like having this moment internally thinking, wow, this is so cool. Like, amazing. And then, she might have asked me a question and I'm like, oh shit. Sorry. What were you saying? And she probably thought I didn't understand.
But you were into your deep, reflection and like that moment that happened for you. No, I
Yeah.
say it's amazing because, there were times before and I thought like, oh, okay, I'm speaking English, like not a big deal. Like, I don't know if that happened for you, but, I was studying English philology at university, then Russian. And then sometimes when you meet people, when I was already like in London working and they say, oh, so what did you study? And when you say like, oh, I study languages, people look at you and like, so what do you actually do for a living? Because it's like as if it's not their job. So coming back to your story, so I also feel like, with that click when I had the dream, but then I see like, after some time, I'm like, I'm going into another level. It's kind of like some game, or I don't know how to call it, like something out, as you said, like out of the body experience in a way, like I did something, I don't know, like magical, maybe even. I don't know how to describe it because I said I would stop thinking in Polish. I mean, I think in Polish when I switch and I talk to people, but then sometimes comes out funny. But then I go to the next level, like, oh, my dreams are in English now. I think in English, but sometimes I will have like a dream in English, Russian. Oh, there's some Bulgarian little conversation in there. So it's like for me, how is this possible? Like, what happens? So now I'm kind of waiting for the time when I start getting like some Georgian sprinkles in my dreams over there. But I said, for me, it's like, how can this happen? I do it in other languages, and then I stop and think like, why dream even in Polish? I'm like, I don't.
You've stopped dreaming in Polish.
Yes, like when I go to sleep, I don't think I dream in Polish, right? Unless I don't recall it, but it's it's mind blowing. Sometimes I joke like I'm this little kid, like they let me out, and I'm like, what's out there? Like I can see, this painting, this place. I can go and talk with this person on the street. Like it's like endless. So many possibilities.
Well, let's move to this topic of creativity. I'm very curious to hear your definition or what you think to you creativity means.
That's a good one. And I think for me, it was changing over the years because when I think creativity, like before, was for me like I would associate it with, I don't know if it's the same for other people, like, with the creative jobs, like, artists, musicians, dancers, actors, but as such. But then over the year, and I paint, I draw, I'm like self-taught. So for me, I would always compare myself, oh, I'm not creative because I'm not as this artist or this person who just sits down and they go, oh, I have this idea, image in my head. They pick the pencil and they just draw it. I'm like, I can't do it. I'm not creative. But then over the years, I would think like, and that's my nerdy linguistic side coming when I was thinking the word create in English, creative. It's like coming from the create, so make something. And I would be like, okay. But what if every one of us is creative? I don't know if you can relate as a teacher, being creative, you create the atmosphere for your teacher, sorry, not teachers, for your students,
Yeah.
so they can, thrive and explore that new language, like for my students, would be English. That, you know, if you didn't create, you didn't make that atmosphere that is fun, you know, supportive, they wouldn't be able to, you know, explore the language. So I think like every one of us is creative.
I think I had that same sort of sensation when I was younger, thinking I'm not sure if I'm creative because, you know, I don't wear overly eccentric clothing, you know, lots of bright colors. I enjoy like pushing the boundaries a little bit, but lately I've sort of toned down and I just wear comfortable clothes.
Yes.
I imagined artists with their crazy colored hair and their big jewelry and
Yes, and colors clashing in the clothes.
yeah, just sort of like this vibe of like I don't give a shit, you know, because
Yes.
I was like, oh, they're so amazing, like
Yes.
longing to sort of be that and to call myself creative, and I think I've gone through a bit of a process as well of saying, okay, but creativity is so many different things. And when I was building my website, I added a part in my About Me section. What does creative mean? What is being creative or what is creativity to me? And I was like, this is a good question. Like, what is creativity to me? So I went through a little bit of a process. You can all visit my website to find the answers. www.english-creative.com/about me.
I've noticed this thing I'm doing. I don't know whether it's creativity, the linguistic aspect, like because I studied philology, like two philologies, so I can like dissect the language as such. But I find myself that I would be like, even if I explain some concept or grammar or even the word, like, you know, we learn one word, then you learn the connotations and, you know, that you can use, you know, oh, we learn the noun, let's just explore the verb, the phrase, whatever. And I would find myself very often being like, okay, if I know even a little bit of Georgian, I can, if my student doesn't understand, I can show them like literally even visually the, like, look, this is what you have here. And sometimes you have the same, even visually looking bit or thing of the word in your own language. Or sometimes you can, you know, like kind of, I think of it, I don't know, like a Lego creation or something. They can put those little blocks and, you know, you can notice like patterns and you start building something. I don't know,
Yeah.
for me, like that creativity that I would like even get into my teaching. But then like the other aspect like of being creative, like what does it mean for me? I also think about, you know, the traveling I did and the languages I used, that it made, I think it made me curious, like, or made me, or creativity is curiosity, because I'm like this hungry person for, you know, to learn things, to know about them. That if I go to a country, yes, I can learn a few words of a language from my friends or just check somewhere. Or I would go on a tour and I'll be like, oh, the history, the culture they have. I want to know, like, the food they're eating, like, why are they eating it? Like, how did they make that dish? Like, different things, like, you know, or this person, like, what's the story? Like, they lived here, like, but then you have the, you know, the politics, the historical aspects of it coming over the, you know, centuries. I don't know, like my brain goes like this, like this. I want to, like, you know, find out like why like so for me
Yeah.
it's like that. I think that creativity, like the big curiosity that comes with it, or is that thing, it's connected or one thing, I'm not sure, but that really that comes out to me.
I'm really curious to see what people think about what language for them is most creative. And you speak various languages, so
I think I have to be true to my first love and say, you know, it's English. Has always been and always will be. Because English was always very important for me. Like, that's my passion, as I said, like fixation, obsession, even, you know, when I look at it. And I think, like, you know, the other languages follow, but they still have some catching up to do. So answering your question, I'd say yes, English for me is like the most creative because I think in it, I express myself, my emotions. Not that to say that I don't have emotions in other languages, but yes, that would be my first answer.
I don't know if I should feel some kind of pride that you've chosen, my first language as a as the language.
Yes.
Or whether I feel a little bit like, are you sure? Are you sure that, there are so many languages. Are you sure that,
I
that
know.
English? But, well,
I see your point, but yeah, no, it's I can definitely say yes, English is creative.
So relating, I guess, to the final question, I'm curious to find out what people's motivation would be to transform their business into English from another language.
I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is like English is a global language still. And it happens, you can be still in your own country, Poland, Italy, but I think a lot of businesses happen in English still. But then if you ask me about my motivation, like if I want to expand my business, reach many people also with the languages I speak, I take it very personal because I think and I explain this to my students, I feel like how many possibilities can English open for you? Whether it's business, whether it's relationships, connections, I don't know, even simple things like you can read your favorite book in English. Like what comes to my mind, that the business is like as if it's your baby. If you're passionate about what you do in your business, that's you. You put your heart and soul into it.
And I think that's a really nice way to end our episode.
Yes, that was so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your insight. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us. And I'm really excited to see what you do with English for Introverts.
Well, I'm excited for you too. And I'm waiting for more episodes and chats with other people, to see what they think, I'm buzzing.
I'm buzzing. I'm Janelle, and you've been listening to The Moment It Clicked. It's been a pleasure having you with us. If this episode inspired you, please subscribe, rate it, and leave a review. You can catch the latest episodes, bonus content, and apply to be a guest on the show at www.english-creative.com/podcast. There are so many door-opening opportunities when you are able to talk about your project in English. The question is, are you ready? Head over to www.english-creative.com for your free I'm Ready roadmap, your first step to transforming your project into English. I can't wait to see you there. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and let your creativity shine in every language.